Hello and welcome to Coffee Talk, the podcast that turns horrible things into a drink that if you drink it too late in the day, you won't be able to sleep. I'm one of your hosts, Matt, and I'm joined by the illustrious Max. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm getting along. A little sick, but
no.
I'm getting there. Yeah, I don't know. It's been kind of in and out. But I'm also joined by Taryn, who I think is also kind of sick, maybe.
Hey, how's it going? I'm getting better, actually. I think I'm on the last leg of it, so that's better.
I keep coming out of it, and I'm fine, and then it comes back.
It's your long hours, man. It's your long hours.
It is. You work too much.
Yeah, but it's not a hard job is the thing. Like, I just sit down and I listen to podcasts, mostly.
Yeah, or create some.
Or create some, or think of things. I don't know. Well, today we're gonna have a fun time. We're talking about nuclear war. If you couldn't tell by the title of our podcast this week, so I hope everybody brewed an extra hot cup of coffee because you're gonna want to pour it into your eyes and experience what some people in Japan did 80 years ago.
Yo.
All right.
Starting off spicy.
Fuck.
1, 2,
Let's take a sip.
Go. What's the news? Hey, is there something new? What's the news? Say what you want to say.
All right. In a Truth Social post on October 29th, 2025, Donald Trump wrote this. I can't do a Trump voice, otherwise I would. Can anybody do a Trump voice?
No,
I cannot.
That's okay. Let's not do it. That's fine. We don't need to. All right. The United States has more nuclear weapons. This is what he wrote, in quotes. The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. This was accomplished, including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is second, and China is a distant third, but will be even within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. What a good guy.
Little caveat. For those of you who don't know.
I think everybody knows.
Well, for this next part. So the Department of War has recently been that's a new name. It used to be the Department of Defense. So just let that sink in for a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah, it was renamed after the threatened to wage war on Chicago, right? That's when that happened.
I believe so.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. They were like, the Department of War, you're going to find out what that means. But it was the Department of War when it was first created, and then they were like, that's too aggressive.
Yeah.
We don't want to be the war people.
Yep.
After World War II, where we started rebuilding the war.
Right.
The world, I mean.
According to all the sources I could find, where he says that we're number one in nuclear weapon stockpiles, it was always Russia that was number one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he might have more information than I do. He, technically he does, but who knows? Because he just lies a lot. That's
Yeah.
If I had
that's
to bet,
kind of his MO.
I would say Russia
Go
still
ahead.
has the number one nuclear arsenal in the world. If I had to bet.
Yeah.
I do
if I
know
had to
that
bet.
there was a denuclearization for the last 40 years, though.
Yeah.
Where
I think it was
President Obama.
late Bush era, Obama. Okay, it's
even
been
the
going
90s
down since. Even the 90s. The 90s started, but Bush and Obama. I think Obama was the one that was like, all right, we're actually going to get rid of him now. Though.
Yes, exactly.
Right. That was one of the first things he did.
Yeah.
So now you might be asking yourself, what does this all mean? Are we going to are we kickstarting the Holocaust of the nuclear Holocaust? Sorry, I kind of fumbled my words there. But President Trump was asked in a recent 60 Minutes interview, not long after his Truth Social post, if he was announcing that after more than 30 years, the United States planned to start detonating nuclear weapons for testing. And he replied that, we're going to test nuclear weapons like other countries do, yes. So that's kind of vague, but like, it also sounds like he really did want to, launch nuclear bombs or, test them. He wanted to see a mushroom cloud, I think. So thankfully his statement was vague enough to let the White House spin a yarn of atomic bullshit. He clarified that they wouldn't be detonating nuclear bombs. Rather, they would instead be testing the delivery methods. So like unarmed ICBMs, or armed but not with the warheads, like nuclear warheads. It would be their launching capabilities and the explosions used to detonate the nukes. But it still worries me because I think a lot of the things with this organization of Donald Trump, he kind of just announces things just out of the blue. Truth Socials it. So why announce it so flippantly? Is it just another thing being done to own the libs? Who knows? Is this us truly backtracking into Cold War era nuclear panic? I mean, I'm surely there already. I don't know where everybody else is, but
I hope not.
Yeah, I'm kind of panicked. I'm like, this is good,
Yeah.
But there'll be more on the Cold War later. Let's get in to where I want to start with the story of nuclear war, and that is the Trinity test. When did our Oppenheimer come out? That was last year or 2 years ago?
I think it was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago in the summer. I believe it was September. I remember because my son was born and my wife and I went to go see Barbenheimer, both movies in the same week.
Yeah. Classic.
Back to back.
Yeah.
And I believe it was September of 23.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That feels like 2 years ago. So I'm not going to dig into too much of Oppenheimer's story or in the Manhattan Project, but it was July 16th in 1945 on a remote part of the White Sands test site in New Mexico. They had the Trinity test, which was the detonation of the first atomic bomb. Mm-hmm. If you remember the movie, everybody's kind of in various locations between like 5 and 20 miles away. I think Oppenheimer was 20 or something. I don't know. The people 5 miles away, I think, were mostly Army people who were kind of part of the test themselves.
Yeah.
If I remember reading right, like they were there to kind of see how close you could get to be safe.
If you did watch the movie Oppenheimer, it was actually real. Like if you ever played Call of Duty, the town, Nuketown, that was like a real town that they built to blow up. Like that was a real thing.
Yep.
They
built
one
a
of their
whole
tests.
village just to blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they do the tests, and one scientist who was there, his name is James B. Conant. He said this about the explosion. Quote, "The enormity of the light and its length quite stunned me." And that's not like super crazy. To be fair, the first atomic bombs weren't like huge. They were massive. They were bigger than anything we'd ever detonated before. But they also, I feel like if you saw one detonated, you wouldn't be like, "Oh my God, that's insane." Because we have, we've got footage now of things that look like Lovecraftian horrors, erupting from the ocean. But that's all that to say. It kicked off what is now what we're in today. While J. Robert Oppenheimer didn't say, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds," after the bomb exploded, he and the rest working at Los Alamos knew the true destructive power of atomic energy would be realized. And only 21 days later, at 8:09 in the morning of August 6th, 1945, the bomb Little Boy was dropped on the city of Hiroshima, and 3 days after that, Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki. Many were killed, and it's an estimate of between 150,000 to 230,000 people died just due to those two bombs alone. Now, those were not actually the most deadly raids of the war, but they were the single most deadly events caused by one or two bombs in the war. I think the fires of Dresden and the burning of Tokyo were both more.
This is a grim reality. But if you ever watched, there's a documentary about the bombing of Hiroshima. There is actually like shadows that are burned into the concrete.
Yep. Yeah, it's like a reverse photograph.
Yeah.
All right. So I have an account from a A man, or a child, well, he was a child at the time, but he's 77 now, from Times Magazine, from this fella named Shigeko Matsumo. And this is what he says about the explosion, or about the day of August 9th. He was in Nagasaki. So here we go. There were no air raid alarms on the morning of August 9th, 1945. We'd been hiding out in the local bomb shelter for several days, but one by one, people started to head home. My siblings and I played in front of the bomb shelter entrance, waiting to be picked up by our grandfather. Then at 11:02 a.m., the sky turned bright white. My siblings and I were knocked off our feet and violently slammed back into the bomb shelter. We had no idea what had happened. As we sat there, shell-shocked and confused, heavily injured, burn victims came stumbling into the bomb shelter en masse. Their skin had peeled off their bodies and faces and hung limply down on the ground in ribbons. Their hair was burnt down to a few measly centimeters from the scalp. Many of the victims collapsed as soon as they reached the bomb shelter entrance, forming a massive pile of contorted bodies. The stench and heat were unbearable. My siblings and I were trapped in there for 3 days. Finally, my grandfather found us, and we made our way back to our home. I will never forget the hellscape that awaited us. Half-burnt bodies lay stiff on the ground, eyeballs gleaming from their sockets. Cattle lay dead along the side of the road, their abdomens grotesquely large and swollen. Thousands of bodies bopped up and down the river, bloated and purplish from soaking up the water. Wait, I pleaded as my grandfather treaded a couple paces ahead of me. I was terrified of being left behind. So that's pretty rough.
That is really morbid.
And that's a little bomb.
Yeah, that's the little one.
You know, that's the little one that's just a few, I think it was 20 kilotons, 18 kilotons. Something like and that. Even then, it's not fully efficient, so it's probably...
Yeah. Because later we make the hydrogen bomb. Yeah.
We perfect the art. So if it happens again, this is going to be worse. You know, this escalation that appears to be happening. The bombs we have today are more efficient. They pack a heavier punch. ICBMs carry multiple warheads to deliver maximum destruction. There is nothing we as a society can do to stop it. Disarmament is not possible as long as there is a shred of distrust in the world. It only takes one madman to push the button, or a soldier to simply follow orders and retaliate against a false alarm. One mistake, and it's so long been good to know you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we end World War II. We kick off into the Cold War. Taryn, you've done some research. What was it again? It was Broken Arrow.
Yes.
Some close calls, and Max also has some things he would like to interject. What is it that you kind of looked up, Max? Did you?
Yeah. So I mostly looked up the devastation of the bombs, you know, atomic versus hydrogen, and the details that involved the bombing itself of Japan. I know it's an ethical battle. To kind of actually piggyback off what you were saying. So, I mean, those bombs were absolutely devastating, right? But
of course,
in the long run, it may have been, and don't quote me on this, but it may have been more ethical to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki rather than a U.S. mainline invasion, just for the sheer fact that the Japanese people were so hell-bent on making sure that the Americans would not capture their land that every man, woman, and child would have taken arms to defend their nation, and it would have been an absolute bloodbath. So I know that there were tens and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't remember the entire death count of the two bombs and even the lasting effects, but ultimately, if you exclude morality and strictly focus on ethics, unfortunately, the bombs were the most ethical way to end the war.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's what made Sorry, go ahead.
I could easily imagine a scenario where we get dragged into a war that lasts a decade because of that, like further on Japanese soil.
Right.
And
that's what.
With that, the bombs that were dropped, it did usher in a era of peace. Like we started to rebuild the world as we go forward, but that had to come from the bombs. Like it's not a good thing at all, but it is the most ethical way, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what made the Pacific front so kind of horrible. That, like you were saying, Max, the Japanese people had a policy of like nobody left alive. If we're going to lose, everybody's going to die on our side. And it was, if we didn't just stop it right away, that's what would have happened.
Yep, and we lived it too with the kamikazes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a game theory. If you didn't know, if neither side will give an inch, it's basically what game theory is. If that's a little bit more into like the programming side, people use game theory all the time for programming, but nonetheless, the Japanese were not going to give an inch, and we weren't going to let them just get like. We had to do something. So
yeah. And for reference. Sorry, go ahead, Taryn.
Damned if you do. It was damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for reference, because I know many people kind of think, oh, nuclear bomb, cool. Right? Like, we all know what that is. There is a very distinct difference between the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb. The atomic bomb was used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki the first time and only time so far that nuclear weaponry has been used, or a nuclear bomb has been used in history. A hydrogen bomb is 20 times larger than an atomic bomb.
It's a magnitude, but it's insane.
So I pulled up a picture. I can't share it here, but the atomic bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the initial blast radius covered, I believe it was 2 miles. Not the blast radius, but where the mushroom cloud is and the effect and all that, because obviously the blast radius encompasses much larger area, whereas the hydrogen bomb would cover over 20 miles.
Yeah.
So again,
it's a bit different.
Well over 10 times the size of.
That's when cities are destroyed. Like, not that the first one didn't destroy a city, but like. You could imagine it's a much bigger scenario.
Manhattan would be leveled.
The first one is, the first one is bad. But if you drop that on Central Park, it's
goodbye.
It's bad.
Yes.
Yeah, it's goodbye.
And that's just the average, isn't it? That's not like the biggest that has ever been. There's like the Tsar Bomba.
Yes. I mean, Taryn, I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but the Tsar Bomba.
No, you go ahead on that because I have some other ones, but go ahead.
I'll let you continue, but just a little tease. So the Tsar Bomba was, I believe, over 100 times larger than Little Boy and Fat Man, and the Russians detonated that. I believe it was in Siberia, in the 60s during the Cold War era, and as soon as they detonated it, and by the way, the shockwave went around the globe. I think it was 3 times before it fully dissipated by electronic instruments.
So insane.
And you could feel it across the world. It may have been quiet, but you could feel it. I'll try and pull up more statistics for it later. But once they realized how massive that weapon was, they decided to immediately decommission anything the size of that.
Yes.
And just the absolute power that it has. I mean, if more than one went off in the world, I think it would destroy the atmosphere. I'll fact check that, but that's the risk of these hydrogen bombs.
That was a throwaway line that it was in Oppenheimer where Einstein had to do a calculation whether or not it would set the atmosphere on fire.
There was a chance that it technically could have happened in the atom bomb when it first went off. I think what Max is saying is that if they detonated more than one Tsar Bomba, it would like rip a hole in the atmosphere. It wouldn't like cause a chain reaction with the atmosphere. It would just like destroy. It would just destroy the atmosphere.
It'd make it uninhabitable. Yeah,
which is insane and it's probably not even in like that big of a thing. I mean, I'm sure it's massive, but it's also like. It probably weighs less than a fully loaded semi truck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that they can do that. If I remember right, the Tsar Bomba's got like 50 megatons. It's 50 megaton equivalent or something like that.
I just found it. So 51,000 kilotons of force, which the Little Boy and Fat Man. So Fat Man was actually larger than Little Boy. Fat Man encompassed 21 kilotons. Tsar Bomba is 51,000.
That's the power is insane.
Yep.
Yes. That is where you come across the famous equation E equals mc squared. That's where you have the energy from mass. It's insane.
Yep. And I believe that equation of igniting the atmosphere, I believe there was a approximate 1% chance that happened based off their initial equations.
But there's always a 1% chance of anything.
That's true. But I mean, to test something that may end the war, but also wipe out all of humanity is pretty daunting.
Yeah.
All right, Taryn, what do you got for us?
Okay.
Yeah, Taryn,
so
kick us.
So, do you guys know what the term broken arrow is?
Heard of it?
That's the lost. Is it the lost ones? The one, or not the ones that are lost, but the ones that are accidental drops.
I wouldn't say drops. This is just a military incident that has happened, a mishap per se, with a nuclear weapon. One of the most famous ones was in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and this was in January 24th, 1961. A USAF B-52 bomber caught fire and exploded in midair due to a major leak in the wing fuel cell 12 miles north of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, North Carolina. 5 crewmen parachuted to safety, but 3 others died, 2 in the aircraft and 1 on the landing. The incidents released the bomber 2 Mark 39 nuclear bombs. 3 of the 4 arming devices on one of the bombs activated, causing it to carry out many steps needed to arm itself, such as charging the firing capacitors and critically the deployment of a 100-foot, 30 diameter. It's the retardation parachute. I had to be careful with that word.
Whoa!
It's a fire
it's a
retardant.
Yep.
Yes. And the parachute allows the bomb to hit the ground with little damage. The fourth arming device, the pilot safety arm switch, was not activated, preventing detonation. The second bomb plunged into a muddy field at around 700 miles per hour, 300 meters per second, and disintegrated. Its tail was discovered about 20 feet down, and much of the bomb was recovered, including the tritium bottle and plutonium. However, excavation was abandoned due to uncontrollable groundwater flooding, and most of the thermonuclear stage containing uranium was left on site. It is estimated to lie around 55 feet below ground. The Air Force purchased the land and fenced it off to prevent its disturbance, and test it regularly for contamination, although none has been so far found.
Wait, so hold on.
So
that's insane.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, there is a nuclear warhead in North Carolina?
Like half of one, I think.
55 foot down, yes. And that's just one of many, because there's a lot of broken arrows, and I'm going to go into more. I'm just kind of covering the famous ones. That was in 1961, where 2 of them possibly could have,
Before we move on from that, because that's insane, but that happened over, where was it? It was
Goldsboro, North Carolina, yes.
So what do you guys think if they would have armed and they would have went off? Is it a false flag thing where we're like, oh, Soviet Russia did it? Do we go to war or do we fess up? What do you think happens?
I think nowadays we would blame Russia. Back then,
I think that would be. Back then we would have fessed up, but I think now we would have used it as an excuse to go into war.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's probably an accurate assumption. Who was president? That would have been, was that Nixon? No, or was that Johnson?
1961.
So that was Kennedy, I think. Kennedy, yeah, 61.
It was Kennedy, yes.
So yeah, I feel like he would have fessed up. I think he would have fessed up. If it were Nixon, maybe not. But okay, that's wild.
Yeah. So two of them were plunging towards just United States. That's all.
And one of them, its parachute deployed.
Yeah.
To allow it to blow up above the ground instead of in the ground.
So,
and the other one lawn darted. Go ahead.
Just a question for you, Taryn. Is it an armed nuclear warhead? Because I know many warheads are not necessarily armed. They're deactivated. They have to be armed.
Given that this was the 60s and it said 3 of the forming arming devices on the bombs activated, I think it was an armed bomb.
It was a hot bomb, but it wasn't fully.
Yeah. It was due
activated.
To one safety, one of the safety features not failing.
I see.
This is why you want redundancies. This was the 60s. This was
so atomic. Because I believe they developed the hydrogen bomb.
It says Mark
10 years
39
later.
nuclear bomb, which is a W39 warhead. I don't know what a W39
I'm looking it up.
Well, hydrogen bomb was invented in 52.
So it says it's the
okay. It has 3.8 megatons. Yeah.
Holy shit! If those things, oh my
Well
god.
then. And for reference,
That's
actually,
massive.
Oppenheimer actually addresses a hydrogen bomb. One of the subordinates of Oppenheimer, if you will, direct reports, ended up mentioning in passing in the show or movie. I'm not sure if it was most people caught on that a hydrogen bomb could be 10 times more destructive than the atomic bomb. But he only he only mentioned it was a theory. But that young scientist was very keen on trying this. So the movie touched on it. And lo and behold...
The heavier the element, because that's more mass, yes.
Yeah, well, also the atomic bomb uses... hold on, let me double check this.
It's atoms, yep.
The atomic bomb splits the atoms, nuclear fission, whereas a hydrogen bomb combines nuclear fission and nuclear fusion, combining light atoms.
But just for the reference, though, the Mark 39, 3.8 megatons, it weighs around 6,500 pounds. So is that about the size of your trailers that you drive, Max?
No, it's way less. That's like 2 pallets of water in my trailer.
Yeah.
It's not that big at all.
But so that's just one little incident that happened in January of 1961. And if you thought that was bad, well, guess what? It happened again in March in 1961. This was a USAF B-52 bomber here in California, Yuba City. The B-52 bomber experienced a decompression event that required it to fly below 10,000 feet, resulting in increased fuel consumption, leading to fuel exhaust. The aircraft crashed near Yuba City with 2 nuclear bombs, which did not trigger a nuclear explosion.
Jesus.
And that was just, we had one in January and that was in March. So it was 1961.
Hold on, two in a couple of months. Okay, so that deserves a sip of coffee. Hold on.
If we didn't learn our lesson first time.
I've been slurping. I made mine extra strong.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the B-52 though. Things still in service. Crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unreal.
And if you still didn't think we learned our lessons, neither did the Russians, I guess, because in July of 1961, the Soviet hotel-class submarine, the K-19, suffered failure in its cooling system. Reactor core temperatures reach 800 degrees Celsius.
That's
Nearly-
good.
Was
That's
this
a
a
little
nuclear
hot.
powered sub? Sorry if I missed it.
Yes, it's a submarine K-19 suffered failure in its cooling system reactor core, and it reached 800 degrees Celsius, nearly enough to melt the fuel rods. Although the crew was able to regain temperature control by using emergency procedures, the incident contaminated parts of the ship's some of the onboard ballistic missiles of the crew, resulting in several fatalities. The film K-19, The Widowmaker, starring Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson, offers a controversial fictionalized story of these events.
What movie? K-19?
Yeah, K-19, The Widowmaker, starring Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson.
Put it on the watch list. Coffee Talk watch list.
Yep, that's a new segment, I guess.
It's crazy. The submarines are what scare me. It's not so much the ones in the planes, but there's all kinds. They say that's the primary power currently.
Yep.
Is the nuclear subs with warheads in them.
So that was just January to July in 1961.
Little known fact. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I mean, I'm just saying that's insane. Just that little 6-month time period or whatever,
A very little known fact that German U-boats actually made it to North America's mainland, excuse me, and they were able to see the New York skyline. Thankfully, this was before New York or before nuclear power and its capabilities. But German U-boats did make it to New York. They had to see the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, they came around. America was surprisingly, like, we weren't under assault by any means, but there were little guys, Japanese and Germans coming up and around on either coast.
Yep.
Like there was a Japanese submarine in California, I think,
mm-hmm.
and one of them, I think, actually fired on a factory. It didn't do any damage or kill anybody, but they were close enough to touch us, and it's crazy.
Yep.
Go ahead, Taryn. You got a couple more broken arrows?
Yeah. So this is the one I think is a little bit more scarier because, I'll just kind of read it and you'll figure out why it's kind of scary. So in January 21st of 1968, so this was years later, there was broken arrows in between this, and I'm just kind of covering the famous ones. But there was at Greenland's Thule Air Base, a B-52 crashed. A fire broke out in the navigator compartment of a USAF B-52 near Thule Air Base. The bomber crashed 7 miles from the airbase, rupturing the bomber's bomb bay and causing the controversial explosions in the 4 B-28F1 or FI thermal nuclear bombs to detonate, fragmenting and spreading the radioactive primary and secondary components across a large area. The burning bomber and its fuel load melted through the ice, dropping wreckage to the seafloor underneath. The recovery and decontamination efforts was complicated by Greenland's harsh weather. Contaminated ice and debris were returned and buried in the United States. Recovered bomb fragments were recycled by Pantex in Amarillo, Texas. The incident caused an outrage and protest in Denmark as Greenland and Danish possessions and Denmark's forbade nuclear weapons on its territory. Now, I believe one of the bombs was never recovered on the seafloor.
Huh.
It's just down there hanging out.
And this is in Greenland?
Wow.
Yeah, it's in Greenland.
Greenland has one nuclear weapon, and it's on the seafloor.
Yeah.
You can get it.
Yeah. Which is scary.
They might have more than that, I guess.
Well, yeah, but it's scary because if, let's say, a rogue nation decides to have a rescue of it, they can just get their hands on a 80-year-old weapon.
Probably extremely unstable. And
yes.
Anyways, I don't know the logistics behind it, but I assume any nuclear warheads, you have to replace, whether it's the arming mechanism or probably not the uranium, that can last forever. But I just feel like you got to maintain that somehow, right? Otherwise, it's going to degrade, and who knows what could happen.
I guess it's good that I don't know how a nuclear bomb fully explodes. I know a lot of it is just like you have to explode around it. You know what I mean? Like there's...
I think it reaches a point of criticality, and that is what causes the explosion. You have to make it unstable.
There were explosions in the bomb bay. That is what caused it.
There's a fire that broke out in the navigator compartment, and then it ruptured the bomber's bay, causing the controversial explosion in the 4 B-28 Fi thermonuclear bombs to detonate, fragmenting and spreading the radioactive material and secondary components across a large area.
Oh, wow. So it was like right there. It just didn't.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Buggers a little bit. So this is like Cold War stuff, you know. It's insane to me that there was a time, and as bad as it seems now, it was, as clearly we're talking about, it was worse at 50, 60 years ago when we're just flying around with this stuff, hanging out, ready to go, and crashing with it. But yeah, we were walking a fine line, I feel. Anybody want to talk about Chernobyl or anything like that? Does anybody, just off the dome?
I would love to.
Okay.
Unless you have something, Taryn?
No, go ahead. I got something to follow up Chernobyl, but go ahead.
Bring it on.
Perfect. So, just kind of to set the stage a little bit, I actually have Russian background. Born an American, will die an American. That's where my loyalties lie. I'm also Canadian, but I've always said that I'm 50% Russian, 50% Canadian, 100% American. It's kind of been my...
That's exactly what a Russian spy would say.
Exactly, so, exactly. Don't worry.
Got my eye on you.
The math adds up. So, for Chernobyl, it kind of hits close to home for me personally because my grandfather was actually there, and he helped contain the nuclear disaster. I don't know if any of you have seen the show Chernobyl on HBO, I believe.
Yeah.
Fantastic show, by the way.
Crazy.
Highly.
I didn't know we'd have oh my gosh.
You've seen it?
Yeah, yeah.
So do you remember the truck drivers that had to come in and bring a bunch of dirt to try and contain the radiation?
Yes.
Yeah.
My grandfather was one of those truck drivers.
That's crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah, and he had to take iodine pills for most of his life because of it. He lived a good life, nothing significant in terms of medical issues. He had a minor surgery and just randomly his heart failed and passed away. So I don't think there was any radiation that caused him to pass. But all that to say, the Chernobyl disaster, it hits close to home. So for those of you who don't know, which I feel most of you do, so I'm not going to dive into the history of it too much. The Chernobyl disaster happened April 26, 1962. 1986, excuse me. So Chernobyl is a wonderful city in the now Ukraine. It used to be the Soviet Union, where the Red Army resides, if some of you recall World War II events. And
classic.
Basically what happened, to summarize, and again, I highly recommend this show. It summarizes it better than I could ever do. It's a mini-series. I think it's like 10 episodes long, maybe less, about an hour each. It's not that long.
Fantastic episodes, too.
It's really good.
It's super dramatic.
Exactly. A little over-dramatized, I will say, but
yeah,
the threat of it is real. So, essentially what happened was the Chernobyl nuclear facility, or the nuclear site, is not a place where they built nuclear weapons. It was just a nuclear reactor that they used to harness energy, which we can get into that maybe in a later episode, but nuclear energy is the cleanest, most efficient energy that we have on Earth, excluding maybe solar energy. Maybe. But even then, to harness that and utilize it takes significant amount of natural resources. So Chernobyl, let me just take my breath here.
Gather yourself.
When I get excited, I tend to talk a little bit too fast without taking a breath. Maybe Slivs can just edit that part out. So what happened was during Chernobyl, so there were multiple assets of failure here, unfortunately. They were doing a test, a safety test for nuclear reactor number 4 to see if the reactor's turbines could produce enough power during some sort of power outage to make sure that there would be no disaster. Well, unfortunately, that test actually caused a much larger disaster than they ever anticipated. So during this test, they brought down power levels far below what the nuclear reactor itself could handle. And when it was brought down to a certain point, it went to a point of failure where the reactor levels just keep dropping and dropping and dropping. Now, I'm not an expert in nuclear energy and how that works. However, what I do know is you need to keep the core cool. If you don't keep it cool, you'll have a meltdown, and the entire system will just melt, essentially, and nuclear energy will be dispersed. Radiation will be sent out all throughout the atmosphere and everywhere in between.
Yes. I can kind of go into how it works if you guys would like to know. Okay. So
break it down.
The way a nuclear reactor works, you have these uranium rods that are in a line like a grid-shaped pattern, and they can be pushed together or pulled apart, and they're submerged in water to keep them cool. Now, the reason why you'd want them to go closer is to get them to expedite the criticality and boil the water. And that's what a nuclear reactor does, is it boils the water to create steam, and then the steam is the heat that turns a turbine. Now, a lot of people get misconstrued on the water being contaminated. The uranium water is usually contaminated. It's not going to go outside of the reactor, but they do have cooling waters that come like in contact like a radiator that cool down the water if need to avoid criticality. Now, it gets complicated when you have these systems that are automated, when you're trying to push uranium rods closer together and they get hot. Now, due to mechanical failures, when things get hot, things can become sticky. And this is what happens is if you push them too close, then it's hard to pull them back apart, because the robotic arms and you get stuck with that process. So you have to be very careful with that. And I think with Chernobyl, they were doing tests for lower power or emergency tests. So
where Chernobyl kind of got wrong, they were using graphite rods as a containment method, and that's what caused it to heat up so fast, because they're very good at containing nuclear stuff. And it just got too hot too fast, and they were just unable to shut down.
Basically, if you have them apart, then they can't go to criticality, and that's how you keep the temperatures cool. But if you want them to get warmer, to produce the boiling water, to produce the steam, to produce the energy, you have to push them closer together. Now, you can regulate this with how close, but due to maintenance checks or due to machine failures or whatever reasons, if it's not upkept perfectly, then you can get disastrous results. But it is a very clean source of energy.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I'm all for nuclear energy.
And for reference, the graphite rods, when inserted slowly, they cause the reaction to slow down, the nuclear reaction to slow down. However, they inserted it extremely quickly in an attempt to try and slow down the reaction itself, because it was just too much heat, too much happening. They inserted it too quickly, and therefore the graphite tips that were for the rods that were in there, the control rods, actually caused a sudden spike in power. So it caused the complete opposite of what they were trying to do.
Yes, the criticality event. Yes.
Yep, exactly. So I guess
a bit of a whoopsie.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys kind of summarized it right there of what happened. There was several key factors. The test, the timing of it went wrong. It went on during a shift change, and the late shift never practiced for this test, never did the test. A lot of young individuals who were working at the reactor had very little knowledge or experience on how to handle it. Additionally, there was reactor design flaws. They were using an RBMK type reactor with uranium-235, which uranium-235 is probably the most unstable type of uranium that could be used. And additionally, there were various operator mistakes, such as shutting off the automatic safety measures, the emergency cooling, that sort of thing. And all of those kind of accumulated into one major cataclysmic event, which was the explosion, and that caused Chernobyl to be uninhabitable for hundreds of years. Still,
yes,
to this day, there are certain parts of Chernobyl that has too much radiation for life. Now, there are certain areas that it is safe to go to. I think it's even a tourist attraction, unfortunately.
Yeah, I heard Disneyland's opening up soon, actually. They're going to Chernobyl Disneyland.
That's crazy.
I wouldn't put it past them.
If you guys,
Mickey Mouse has 4 heads.
If you guys want to know,
eyes are backwards.
This is tying into Chernobyl a little bit. There is a photograph of what's in the basement of Chernobyl, and it cost the man his life.
I was going to bring it up.
Yeah, okay, you're gonna. It's the elephant's foot.
Elephant's foot. I was going to say insert picture of elephant's foot on the video version. It's terrifying. I mean, it's just a hunk of molten slag, basically, and radioactive material. But it's still, you look at it and you're like, this thing is not.
Yeah,
it looks like an alien, even though it's just elements.
There is also a YouTube video of a helicopter flying over Chernobyl to try to contain it, and due to the sheer radioactivity of it, the helicopter just starts falling apart and disintegrating midair.
Oh, wow.
You can see the tail wing just buckle. It's weird.
Oh, that's good.
And they addressed that in the series as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the helicopters, everybody, I think it was every flight, everybody, that was like they could only do one trip over or something like that. Like that was more radiation than a person could take in their life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's nasty stuff. When it goes wrong, it goes really bad.
I wanted to bring up Chernobyl as one of those things of like there's the secrecy behind it. If it happened, Russia, it took them a while before they told anybody what had actually happened. Even though people were like, "There's something going on here. We've got some strange things in the wind. There's radioactive particles. Like what's going on?" That's kind of the paranoia in Soviet Russia. It comes to a peak in Chernobyl with that massive accident.
My one story I was going to say is, since we were just talking about Chernobyl, though, is
go ahead. Yep.
About a decade prior, we had a similar thing happen on U.S. soil. It didn't go critical. Well, not in the way you think. Not nearly as bad like Chernobyl.
But there was contained, right?
There was Mostly. 3 Mile Island, which is off the coast of
yes.
Near Pennsylvania. And a malfunction in the plant's cooling system and operator error led to a partial meltdown of the core reactor in Unit 2. The problem began with a relief valve stuck open, allowing coolant to escape. Control room instruments did not clearly show that the valve was open, so operators mistakenly shut off emergency cooling water, thinking the system was overfilled. As a result, the reactor overheated, damaging about half the uranium fuel. The radiation released a small amount of radioactive gas, was released into the atmosphere, but no immediate deaths or injuries occurred. Later studies found that radiation exposure to the public was very low, roughly equivalent to a chest x-ray for people nearby. But very scary thing that happened about a decade prior to Chernobyl, but it could have gone way worse.
Right. I think it's good to point out, because Chernobyl's a big thing, and that 3 Mile Island is a big thing people point at as like against nuclear power.
Yes.
In the case of Chernobyl, they were using, like Max said, it was U-235, which is one of the most unstable common radioactive elements ever. Just a bad move there. But it also used the graphite rods to contain it. And that was also already outdated by the time it was in use there. It's kind of like a brute force containment method, whereas there are other reactors that are much safer, that don't rely on like I don't know what I'm trying to say. They don't rely on graphite rod type of thing. It's they're much safer.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting at. I don't know what they are, but they're not that.
Yeah, there's a lot more checks and balances and safety measures in place now for modern nuclear power plants than there are back in the day. And Soviet Russia was very it was a socialistic system, right? Like they had very strict guidelines and measures and quotas to fill. And part of the failure of Chernobyl and what happened over there was due to that. Now there's tens and tens of different reasons why the Chernobyl disaster happened, but nowadays because of that event in particular, there's so much more regulation placed on it. Yes. And I know people are a little bit concerned about Japan and what happened in the earthquake and. What was that? 2010 approximately, around that time. I don't remember the exact year.
Yeah.
But that was also 2010 or 11, I think. Yeah.
One of those freak accidents that's very difficult to predict.
There was a tidal wave, wasn't there? Or it
was
tsunami.
Tsunami.
Yeah. But even then, they've made a lot more safety measures and use a lot safer ways to actually harness nuclear energy.
And if you didn't know, I believe it was about a decade ago, they put they called it an iron coffin over Chernobyl to hold a lot of the radiation and house it, basically.
It's pretty sick to call it an iron coffin too. That's cool.
I think it's actually set to degrade in the next 100 or so years. It's a temporary fix. For and for those of you that don't know, Chernobyl is still leaking radiation to this day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it will be like that
to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget what the half-life is. If you are unfamiliar with half-life, it's half-life refers to how much radiation a piece of uranium or whatever that is radiating, how long that will live. And the half-life of the Chernobyl disaster is about 30 years, initially short-lived. Iodine 131 was half-life of 8 days. Oh, maybe that was in the body. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's for the for the iodine consumption.
That's the fallout, I think.
Yeah.
But from the actual element that is melted or the meltdown.
So according to this website, k12.org. It says here that these are some of the materials that consisted in that reactor. Celsium-137 and strontium-90 have half-lives of about 30 years. Mm-hmm. However, that reactor also used plutonium-239, which has a half-life of about 24,000 years.
Yes.
So Chernobyl will be reactive for quite some time. At least the ground zero will be where the reactor is itself. But other areas surrounding it, as long as the ground zero is contained, will be livable soon.
I just did a quick research here, and it says Chernobyl will remain uninhabitable for at least 20,000 years.
Yeah.
Don't worry, guys. You can still you can take your grandchildren when you get older.
Hey, plan a vacation. 20,000 years.
If you can't make it to Chernobyl Disneyland now, you can go in 20,000 years. It'll still be there. All right. I was going to talk a little bit about the Cuban Missile Crisis, but we're coming near the end.
That's fine.
Basically all I wanted to touch on with that is just the escalation. And it was kind of out of order. I think we did a pretty good job here.
Yeah.
But I would like to go ahead and close it off with this here. So, now, even though the Cold War was declared over when the Berlin Wall fell in the 90s, tensions are rising between the world's nuclear superpowers once again. Not in an arms race, but in a tech race. We didn't even touch on this, but AI, cyber attacks, bot farms, disinformation sponsored by foreign powers who seek to divide, all while the bomb looms over the horizon. It is my opinion that the current administrations of the United States and Russia walk on a razor's edge. Putin has threatened use of tactical nuclear strikes on Ukraine, and the United States is run by a geriatric man who at every turn seems to be caught with his pants around his ankles. Also, the U.S. has a Secretary of War, which we touched on wasn't called that. It wasn't the Secretary of War. It wasn't the Department of War. His name is Pete Hegseth. He's a known alcoholic and abuser, and he wrote this in the opening statements of his book, American Crusade. This was his book. This was kind of his Hail Mary to get some sort of political power. He wrote it, I think, in 2019 or something like that, or 2022.
Okay.
So he writes, quote, "We the people must understand this moment. You feel it, I feel it, we all feel it. The other side, the left, is not our friend. We are not esteemed colleagues, nor mere political opponents. We are foes. Either we win or they win. We agree on nothing else. And this time in our history calls for an American crusade. Yes, a holy war for the righteous cause of human freedom." That's a little concerning, right? Like the left is the enemy. They're not just like American citizens. They're the enemy. He's calling for a holy war on him. He says a bunch of other pretty inflammatory stuff about the left as well in that book. I recommend the Behind the Bastards episode on Hegseth. It came out, I think, a few months ago. Mm-hmm. But it's not just the left. It's like it's everybody that's not white, basically, and a Republican. Throws them under the bus there. So I write all of this to say we're edging closer and closer to some sort of conclusion, or at least I think so. We can't get rid of the bomb, and we also can't use it and be guaranteed safety. The ease in which a man could just end the world out of spite terrifies me, and now it seems all the people who used to say no are just being fired. Mm-hmm. You know, with like Doge and all of that. They're just goodbye. Bringing closer the possibility of total destruction. Unfortunately, there's no message of hope this week. The coffee's been left out overnight and is now cold and sour. I don't want to imagine a nuclear exchange going down, but I do more and more each day. If we make it through this, somewhere, somehow, we cannot let the threat of nuclear war rest in the hands of a spiteful individual. For the sake of all who have suffered, let us never do it again. Just deep breath. Let's, like I said, if we make it through this, maybe we won't vote in some guy who makes us fear that
it's a possibility.
It's a possibility. So thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your coffee. All right. Join us next week. Yeah, this will be up on YouTube. This will come to podcast services around the globe. I think next December
something like that.
What is Monday?
I don't want to spit out a date.
This episode
December
won't be in December. This episode will be in January. Episode 3 will be out on December 1st.
Yeah.
On podcast services, but this will come out next Monday or Monday.
I'm glad you're keeping track.
Comes out every Monday. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a great week.
Good
See you
day.
Next time.
1, 2, ready, go. What's the news? Hey, is there something new? What's the news? Say what you want to say.